I filed for full custody after my ex moved her addict boyfriend into her home. Now my own parents are calling me heartless and taking her side. Hey everyone. So, I recently made a decision, and now I'm second guessing whether it was right or wrong, mostly because just about everyone around me is upset about it. Normally, I wouldn't care so much about other people's opinions, but even my own parents are siding against me, and that's got me thinking. I guess I'm looking for some clarity here. This whole thing has to do with my ex-wife. Let's call her Tara. We're both 30 years old, and we have 2 kids together, a son who's 7 and a daughter who just turned 5. Even though we've been separated for 2 years now, Tara has partial custody. Still, the kids only stay with her on weekends, which was her own choice. Tara and I met in college, dated all through it, and tied the knot when we were both 22. At first, everything felt like a dream. But over time, the routine of daily life started wearing us down. The love faded slowly. I think we just drifted apart. Things got worse after our daughter was born. We started clashing over everything. No matter what the topic was, we just couldn't see eye to eye. She wanted something different out of life, something I couldn't give her, and I had my own path in mind. Eventually, it hit us both that we were just too different to keep forcing it. We tried to hold it together for the kids, but the constant arguing wasn't healthy for them either. Near the end, I brought up the idea of marriage counseling, just one last shot at fixing things. But Tara shot it down. She said she'd rather get divorced than drag things out any longer. And honestly, I respected that. I run my own catering business, which does pretty well. Tara works as a high school teacher. I earn quite a bit more than she does, so yes, she gets alimony, plus child support. That's the deal her lawyer managed to get her. And even though she only has the kids for 2 days a week and she has a job, I still have to send her a sizable amount every month. It's been 2 years now since the divorce, and truthfully, we function better as parents now that we're not under the same roof. I wouldn't call the divorce nasty, but it definitely wasn't pleasant either. Still, we've made co-parenting work, and everything seemed to be going okay. Tara and I don't really talk unless it's about the kids. That's it. We interact only when we're handing the kids off. Either I'm dropping them off at her place or she's bringing them back to mine. Outside of that, we don't really have anything to say to one another. For holidays, we try to spend a little time together just for the kids' sake, but that's the extent of it. So overall, things felt stable. The kids seemed happy. I didn't think anything was wrong until about 2 weeks ago, when Tara reached out and asked to meet midweek. I had no clue what she wanted, but when we met, she told me she wanted to talk about child support. She said she wasn't starting the formal renegotiation just yet, but wanted to give me a heads up in person so I wouldn't be blindsided. Honestly, it was a smart move, because I was shocked when she said she wanted to increase the amount. From where I stood, I was already being more than fair. She had a full-time job, plus alimony and child support from me. Combined, it added up to almost a quarter of my monthly income. That's not a small amount by any means. We met over lunch to talk it through, and she explained that she was planning to leave her teaching job. She wanted to work with a friend at a startup and finally put her marketing degree to use. The only catch? The startup wasn't profitable yet, and her salary would be minimal in the beginning. Tara said she was fine with the risk personally, but she didn't want the kids to go without. That's why she wanted me to increase the child support to help cover for what she'd be missing while chasing this new path. I could see her point, I really could. But I couldn't make sense of it either. She was still getting alimony and child support, and the kids only stayed with her 2 days a week. If it weren't for her lawyer's skills, she might not have gotten child support at all considering the minimal time they spend with her. On top of that, I already cover a lot of their expenses directly. I buy what they need, I pay for their school. It's not like I'm leaving her to handle everything. So technically, I could have just said no to child support altogether, but I've always tried to be fair. I knew Tara didn't make as much as me, and I wanted to help. But asking me to increase it? That just didn't sit right with me. I was already going above and beyond what was required. That should have been more than enough. I told her as calmly and respectfully as I could that I wasn't going to up the amount. I reminded her that she was still getting a good chunk of money from me through alimony and child support combined, and if she couldn't manage her finances, that was something she'd have to figure out. Instead of understanding, she snapped at me. Said I was being selfish. She insisted the extra money was for the kids and that I needed to put them first. Things got tense. We went back and forth, and neither of us could see eye to eye. I kept pointing out that the kids were only with her for 48 hours a week. It didn't make sense to ask for more unless she wasn't willing or able to care for them during that time. That's when she got really offended. She said I was being insulting, like I was accusing her of not loving our children or not wanting to spend on them. She kept circling back to how she earned less than I did, and the whole conversation just spiraled into a back and forth that wasn't going anywhere. Eventually, we agreed to hit pause and revisit the topic later. I went home that day feeling completely irritated. The only reason I ever agreed to the original alimony and child support setup was because her lawyer had secured a really sweet deal for her and because my parents pushed me into accepting it. They guilt me hard, saying things like, "She's the mother of your children, and you make way more than she does, it's the least you can do." I gave in back then, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't feel like I had a choice. But this time around, I didn't breathe a word to my parents. I knew exactly how they'd react, they'd pressure me again, just like before. See, they had a weird attachment to Tara when we were married. It's not a big secret that my parents always dreamed of having a daughter but ended up with me instead. They were decent parents, sure, but when I got married, it was like their excitement went into overdrive. They'd gush about Tara, calling her the daughter we never had. It was supposed to be sweet, but honestly, it felt off to me. Given what I knew about their past, it left a bad taste in my mouth. When Tara and I started the divorce process, they were more upset than I was. They took her side constantly, checking in on her, comforting her, but barely acknowledging what I was going through. Even after we split, they stayed in contact with her. I didn't like it, but they didn't care how I felt about it. The only reason I haven't cut them off is because they're old now, and I'm their only child. I can't bring myself to just walk away. I do have a conscience, even if they act like they don't. I still make it a point to visit them once a month, though that might be changing soon because they've been acting like complete jerks about all this. But anyway, back to the day after that conversation with Tara. Something just didn't sit right with me. Even with the generous amount of money she was already getting, she still wanted more. That didn't add up, and my gut was telling me there was something else going on, something she wasn't being honest about. So I started digging around. I figured if there was something she didn't want me to know, it would show up somewhere. I went straight to her social media and combed through everything. Luckily, she doesn't post a lot, and she's only got around 150 followers, so it wasn't hard to check each one. Most of them were who you'd expect, friends, family, co-workers. But then I noticed a few random guys on there. About 10 or so. I figured they were probably guys she'd dated over the past few months, which I'd already heard whispers about from some mutual friends. But one guy in particular stood out like a sore thumb. He looked really young, couldn't have been older than 22, and just scrolling through his page gave me a bad feeling. His whole vibe screamed trouble. His profile was full of pictures where he was holding joints, his face hidden behind clouds of smoke. Very artsy, very edgy, but not Tara's style at all. At least not the Tara I knew. She's a mom of two, not some free-spirited party girl. I don't want to sound judgmental, but this guy gave off all the wrong signals. His entire account was basically a highlight reel of red flags, tattoos everywhere, openly bragging about using drugs, and in one photo, he was literally holding a rifle like it was a toy. You know the type. It wasn't just the pictures, it was the way he presented himself. He looked proud of being reckless. And the worst part? Tara was interacting with his posts. She'd left fire emojis on more than one of his pics. That's when I knew something was definitely going on. I took a screenshot of his profile and sent it to a buddy of mine whose uncle works in law enforcement. I asked him to see if there was anything shady on this guy. Let's call him Sean. A couple days later, my friend got back to me. His uncle remembered Sean clearly. Apparently, this guy had been arrested about 2 years ago for aggravated assault and battery. The story went that he got into a fight with a drug dealer and ended up smashing a fire extinguisher into the guy's stomach. Luckily, the victim wasn't seriously hurt, but someone who witnessed the whole thing called the cops. My friend's uncle was the one who arrested Sean and processed him. That confirmed everything I feared. This guy was bad news. Knowing this, I felt sick to my stomach thinking that my kids might have been around someone like him. I couldn't be sure, but I had to know. So I took a big risk. I picked the least threatening picture of Sean, one without any obvious red flags, and showed it to my kids. I asked if they'd ever seen him before. They hesitated, looking nervous, but after I reassured them they wouldn't get in trouble, they started to open up. And what they told me? It honestly shook me. They knew exactly who he was. They said he was Tara's new boyfriend and had been around for about 6 months. Not only that, but Tara had told them in no uncertain terms not to mention him to me. She threatened them, made them believe something bad would happen if they talked. Even while telling me, they were clearly still scared. They said she'd told them if they snitched, she'd show up at their school and get them expelled. Worse, she said she'd have them sent to an orphanage if they ever told me the truth. I was furious and heartbroken. What kind of mother uses threats like that to keep her kids quiet? She went so far as to tell our kids that if they ever told me about Sean, not only would she hate them forever, but I'd never forgive them either, that they'd be awful kids in my eyes. And the heartbreaking part is, they believed her. They're just little kids. They didn't know any better. She scared them into silence with a performance that was convincing enough to keep them quiet. The fact that she would manipulate them like that made my stomach turn. But unfortunately, what I'd found out so far was just the beginning. It was about to get much worse. My son went on to tell me that ever since Sean came into the picture, he'd been practically living at Tara's house. He said Sean would wait until I left, then show up like clockwork. They'd spend almost the entire weekend together while the kids were there. But here's the kicker: whenever I came by to drop the kids off, Sean would conveniently step out for a walk so I wouldn't see him. Tara was intentionally hiding him from me. Then my son told me something that stopped me cold. He said Sean and Tara would spend most of their time smoking something that didn't smell like regular cigarettes. He said it made the whole place stink. I knew exactly what he meant. I didn't need details, my heart sank. I couldn't believe Tara would be doing that kind of stuff around our children. He didn't stop there either. He said they'd argue, sometimes loud, heated fights. And on more than one occasion, he overheard mentions of needles and pills being left around the bathroom. That's when I felt this wave of fear hit me. I asked him if he'd ever gone into the bathroom or her bedroom, and thank God he said no. He told me he avoided those areas completely, which was a small relief. Still, the writing was on the wall. It all pointed to one awful truth: the money I'd been sending every month, the alimony and child support, was likely being funneled into Sean's habit. It was just a theory at that point, but everything added up far too neatly. I didn't waste a second. I called my lawyer immediately and told him I wanted to pursue full custody. I laid everything out, what my son had told me, what I'd discovered online. Even he was stunned. None of this sounded like the Tara we thought we knew. This wasn't just a bad decision, this was reckless and downright dangerous parenting. I didn't even bother calling Tara to confront her that night. I was in too much shock, and honestly, I didn't trust myself to speak calmly. A few days later, she was served with the custody papers. That's when she finally called me. Furious. She started yelling right away, assuming I'd found out about Sean. And before she could go off any further, I cut her off. I told her I did know. All of it. And I couldn't believe she'd been so careless with our kids' safety. At first, she played dumb, acted like she didn't understand what I was talking about. But once I told her our son had told me everything, including who Sean really was, she dropped the act. Then came the begging. She got emotional and tried to explain. Said she really loved Sean and was trying to help him get clean. Claimed she'd only asked for more child support to put him through rehab so they could eventually get married and have a future together. She swore she still cared deeply about the kids, but she also loved Sean and didn't want to give up on him. According to her, they'd met almost a year ago and had gotten serious quickly, serious enough for him to move in. She said she knew about his criminal record and drug issues from the beginning, that he'd come clean to her when they matched on some dating app. But I didn't care about any of that. All I could think about was the position she'd put our children in. She brought a known addict into their lives and forced them to live in that kind of environment, whether they were comfortable with it or not. And worse, she hid it from me. She never thought it was important to tell me that the man living in her house around our kids had been in jail for violent behavior. That was the final straw. I told her flat out that I wasn't backing down. I'd already made up my mind. No more chances. No more trust. Maybe we weren't great spouses to each other, but I had always believed she was a good mom. That belief had been the reason I'd agreed to alimony and support without any complaints. But now, she'd proved me completely wrong. She wasn't looking out for our kids anymore. She'd lost herself in some fantasy where helping a drug addict was more important than keeping our children safe. And from what the kids told me, Sean wasn't even good with them. They were afraid of him. Said he'd lose his temper over the smallest things, have full-blown meltdowns, and made them feel unsafe in their own mother's home. I wasn't going to let that slide. Tara kept pleading with me to stop the custody battle, to reconsider, but it was too late. I'd already taken action, and I wasn't going to walk it back. My kids deserved better. They deserved safety, peace, and stability, and I couldn't trust Tara to provide that anymore. Even if she dumped Sean tomorrow, even if she promised he'd never come near our kids again, I still wouldn't believe her. She had already crossed too many lines, and her judgment was clearly clouded by whatever feelings she had for him. I told her she better get her lawyer ready because I wasn't going to make this easy for her. I wasn't stopping until I had full custody. What hurt even more was what happened after that. Instead of taking a moment to understand why I was reacting the way I was, she ran straight to my parents and started complaining. And, of course, my parents jumped right in. They called me up a few days ago, telling me I needed to stop ignoring Tara's messages. That she's still the mother of my children and I needed to show her respect. Same script. Same guilt trip. Just like they did during the divorce, when they talked me into agreeing to everything without putting up a fight. But this time, it's different. Because now, it's not about me. It's about my kids. And I won't be guilted into backing down. And I wasn't about to let anyone, not even my parents, pressure me into doing something I knew deep down I didn't want to do. I had already spoken to my kids, and they made it perfectly clear they didn't want to go back to Tara's place, not while Sean was around. That alone was enough for me to stand firm on my decision. No one was going to change my mind. But of course, my parents wouldn't let it go. They kept hammering at me, saying I was being selfish, that instead of trying to take the kids away from their mother, I should be trying to understand that she was in love. They actually said it wasn't fair to the children because, in the long run, they'd need their mom. I still don't understand that logic. My kids themselves told me they didn't feel safe with her, not with Sean in the picture. At the very least, they didn't want to spend weekends over there as long as he was around. That should have been the end of the discussion, but my parents just kept on, saying I was being cold-hearted by filing for full custody just because she happened to fall for the wrong guy. Look, let me be clear. I don't give a damn who Tara falls in love with or chooses to date. That's her business. But the second she lets that person around our children, it becomes my business too. And based on everything I now know, I've decided my kids shouldn't be anywhere near Sean. Any decent parent would have done the same thing. Still, my parents think I'm blowing things way out of proportion. They think I'm making a huge deal out of nothing. And I'll admit, their constant guilt-tripping has made me question myself a little. I know they've always had a strange bias toward Tara, and they've got their own unresolved issues there, but still, I don't want to make the wrong move here. That's why I came here. I needed some outside perspective. Honestly, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. But I guess I just needed to hear it from others too. Am I the bad guy for filing for full custody when I found out my ex-wife was dating a junkie? Update 1. Hey everyone, thank you so much for the overwhelming support and kind words on my original post. It means the world to me and my kids. Right now, we're doing a lot better. The kids seem lighter, freer, like a weight's been lifted off them. They're no longer carrying around that heavy secret, and it's a huge relief to see them smile again. After reading through hundreds of helpful comments, I've decided to get them into therapy. It's pretty clear they've gone through a lot, more than any kid should, and I need to do everything I can to help them heal from the damage Tara caused. As for Tara, well, I've blocked her. I haven't even read the last few messages she sent me because, frankly, I don't care what kind of excuses she's trying to make. She can cry about how I'm being selfish or cold all she wants, but the truth doesn't change, she failed our kids. If anyone was selfish, it was her. She should have prioritized them over some guy she was trying to save. She could have left Sean. She could have protected the kids. But she didn't. Instead, she lied to me for months and let that man around our children like it was nothing. And now I'm just supposed to move on like none of it ever happened? Yeah, no. Not happening. And one more thing, I've blocked my parents too. I'm done. If they love Tara so much, they can go lean on her when things go south. If trouble comes knocking, they know who not to call. Spoiler alert. It's not going to be me. Update 2. So Tara and I are scheduled to meet with a mediator in a couple of days. But earlier today, she decided to just show up at my house out of nowhere. Thankfully, the kids were still at school when she came by. I refused to let her in. I had no interest in seeing her, let alone talking. But she wouldn't stop knocking, wouldn't stop crying and begging me to let her talk to the kids. I told her they weren't home. She didn't believe me. She actually accused me of hiding them inside, like I was keeping them from her on purpose. She stood outside ranting and pleading for several minutes before I finally told her straight I wasn't playing these games, and if she didn't leave in 5 minutes, I'd call the police. That must have shaken her, because she finally walked off. But not before she yelled back at me that I'd never be able to tear her children away from her. She had no idea how far gone she already was. What she didn't seem to realize is, the kids had already made that decision themselves. They were the ones who said they didn't want to go back. Her own actions had pushed them away. She ruined things, and now she had to live with the consequences. Honestly, I'm just grateful she left before the kids got home. I'm not sure how they would have handled another meltdown. I've already told them they won't be seeing their mother or their grandparents anymore, and surprisingly, they seem okay with it. They've started opening up more in therapy, and I really believe, with time and patience, we're going to get through this. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been a while, I know. I've been caught up in court battles with Tara over custody, and it's been exhausting. Unfortunately, we couldn't reach any kind of agreement through mediation, which I expected. There was no way she and I were ever going to meet in the middle on this. So we went to court, and my lawyer and I fought like hell to protect my children. The system usually tries to keep both parents in the picture, but in this case, even the judge saw that the situation with Tara was beyond salvageable. To be fair, Tara did a solid job of self-destructing during the proceedings. Her lawyer, who had managed to corner me during the original divorce, couldn't do anything to save her this time. Her behavior was so erratic, so unstable, that it practically sealed her fate. Even in court, she was all over the place. At one point, I actually felt a little bad for how far she'd spiraled. But sympathy has its limits, and I had none to spare when it came to my kids' safety. In the end, we won full custody. And now, my children and I are safe, together, and happy. That's all I ever wanted. As for Tara, I have no clue what's become of her since, and honestly, I don't care. That chapter of our lives is closed for good. And for the first time in a long while, we're finally at peace.